Hey, welcome back to DCWF Point of View. Okay, so we're back for another video, and I have no clue when we're going to be posting it, but hey, it'll be posted. Don't worry. Okay, so today, of course, I'm DCWF, but today I have my mom again with me, and you remember she's C. So today we're doing we're going to give our opinion on the movie Madam Web. We recently watched it. I know that it's been out for a little while longer than... So this video is coming out kind of late, I guess, in comparison to the movie itself coming out. But we decided to go ahead and do a review, opinion, whatever you want to call it, about it. So, let's see. What do we want to start with? I mean...
Hi, everybody. Well, I think that the characterization of the person that they picked was really good from the start to how they started her off and then moved it along at a nice pace, I thought, in the movie.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, I was very, very surprised.
Yeah, it was very surprising how they did that. I mean, the way they started off, you didn't even know she actually really cared per se about anything, and then all of a sudden you turn and think, oh, she does have a little bit of a care. She just tries to hide it for some reason.
Yeah.
So that ended up being pretty interesting, and of course, who the villain of the movie was, I mean, that made it interesting too, how they went off of one another. Yeah. One thing set up a whole chain of events and a chain reaction.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting, especially considering you wouldn't have thought that he would have actually been the villain, because it didn't look like at first that he was going to, and then in a couple minutes you find out, of course, he's a bad guy. He really wants what he wants, and he doesn't care how he does it.
Yeah, he just wants power.
And so then the play off of them two was kind of interesting, but a lot surprising for her.
Very. Yeah. Now, anybody who's watching, I'm already telling you, yes, there's going to be spoilers in here. So if you haven't watched the movie, well, I've already spoiled some of it for you. Too late, sorry. But we're going to continue to add more spoilers. So if you don't want to turn on knowing without watching, you might want to pause the video now, go watch the movie, and come back. Okay.
That would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. But, so, I really did, actually. I liked how they started it. It was very interesting. Let's see, it was starting out in like it was the past scenes, started out there. And so you start back at the beginning, and it's actually not even about the main character right that first, not that you know about, because you don't realize that she's the kid, she's the unborn child in the woman. And so the woman, her mom, is actually turned around there because of her.
Yeah, you're actually thinking that she's going to be the main character, and then you quickly find out that is not actually the case.
Well, especially when you go by the commercials that you're turning. We watched the first part of the movie, and I was thinking, all those commercials that I got to see, and I was thinking, man, where does the main actor come in? Where's the woman that's actually supposed to be Madam Web? Where does she come into this? Because the woman that's right there on the main screen right this second, that ain't her.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. It was also very interesting, like, how you didn't find out until near the end of the movie that her mom went there because she really loved her, and it wasn't just that it was, she was a scientist who was completely encompassed by her work, and it didn't matter that she was pregnant or not. Yeah. In fact, her being pregnant was the whole purpose for her being there.
Yeah, that made it even more interesting, but of course you have to go all the way to almost the end of the movie to find that out. So you're kind of wondering along there about her mom, but the characterization of her, and then her being friends with Ben Parker, that's really, really interesting, because you're used to seeing him as an
older man, and as someone who's already in his late 40s, 50s, even into his 60s, and you're seeing that he's with his teenage nephew taking care of Peter Parker. And so it was quite interesting to see a timeline where they're showing Ben Parker and showing what he actually did when he was younger. I mean, it was quite interesting that they went with that he was actually an EMS worker, and that the one who was Madam Web, she was also was an EMS worker, and they were a team working together.
You would have never.
Yeah, never would have expected to see them do it that way.
Definitely never, because when you saw the Spider-Man films, you never even thought of him as being somebody who was an EMS worker. But of course, they never really said too much about it. But it was quite interesting to find out what he did when he was younger, and that made the movie more entertaining.
It was.
He didn't have a huge part, but his smaller part helped to kind of pull it together in a way that I really was surprised about, because I was a little, hesitant about the movie after all the things that have been done and said and everything. So I was really surprised that they put it together like that.
Well, especially considering, I mean, when we're talking about that part, I mean, so many comments and so many reviews about the movie, at least from what we were seeing on some of the different review sites, was the movie was an awful movie. And and the bad thing was there was a couple of people who were like, oh, it's an awful movie before the movie's even released. I mean, we hadn't even seen where it had been released yet, or they even said it was released, and everybody was saying, oh, it's a terrible movie, awful, what was it, plot? One of them said it was like an awful plot. I am a fan. I am actually a fan of Marvel's shows, movies most of the time. I'll be honest, I'm not going to talk too much about these most recent ones because we'll be going down a whole rabbit hole. But
that's what made the characterization of this so much better than we thought. We started watching it with the expectation of, maybe we could at least get through it.
Yeah.
But giving that little bit of information about Ben Parker and figuring out that, where it kind of started from with him, he was just going to be an adoring uncle. Yeah. And then come to find out that's, so it gave a really nice characterization for him too. You found out something that you didn't know, and then it tied with Madam Web. They did it nicely because you were kind of trying to figure out how would that tie in together, but then finding out that they were a team and everything like that. That's kind of neat.
Oh, definitely. Especially like I've watched all the different cartoons ones, and on mostly the cartoon ones is the ones where I've seen where they've done the bringing in her character. And so I actually liked the live action rendition. They showed, not only did they show bringing in her character, I mean, they did an excellent job of bringing in the character of Madam Web, but they also showed the tie-in. They were turning around, they were actually showing the threads, as it were, of how her character was going to actually encompass so many other things, dealing with with Spider-Man, and dealing with, well, like in the movie, there's the three women who were going to be Spider-Woman as well. Yeah. Now, of course, one was Spider-Woman. The other two, I'll be honest, I don't remember exactly what their names were supposed to be. That's because mostly those two, I think, are from the comics more so. Didn't get to see them as much on movies or shows and stuff, so I'm sure that I probably know their names, but I don't remember right offhand.
And it was interesting how they made her character bring them together, even with all the different personalities that they were putting in there. And you wouldn't have thought that would have been a possibility. You're like, wait a minute, this is not going to work.
Well, at first, I mean, because, you start off with the story where they're showing how Madam Web is basically how she's born, and what happened and all that. You don't know why her mom was actually there. You just figure she's a scientist. That part you don't find out until near the end of the movie, why she actually was there. But then, after you get into the movie good, you got these three girls that are completely opposite areas. I mean, each one are different. They do something different. But all three of them are within Madam Web's life before her powers are even active. She's already been in contact with all three of them from some scenario or situation.
That
And
made it very interesting because
they all three, you could tell they had different personalities, and none of the three of them, especially like the little scenes that the bad guy has, he has little dreams, like memory dreams almost, that he's gonna be fighting them one day.
Yeah.
And the characters you see in his dreams, they don't match the characters all that much from what they were showing.
So you're very surprised when they bring them together, and you're like, wait a minute, they're not even that character at all, but
their personalities don't seem like they've matched that yet.
Yeah, but they're going to be, as you watch the movie along, you could find out that they're going to be that character, and that's what made it interesting. Yeah. It was worth watching more so than some of the newer films that they've had. I thought they just did a really great job with it and tying it together towards the end. You're kind of still wondering about some of the things, but they tied it all together to show you that really the man, he took a dream and turned it to one way, but it was always going to be a different way. And so if he wouldn't have done that, he would have not run into them at any point when he thought. It would have been a long time later.
Probably closer to the time when he was going to eventually die. Because, I mean, well, let's see, he was, they didn't really specifically say what his age was. I gathered that he was either much older than he appeared, or that he was much younger when the first start scene was. But they never specifically said, not that I remember, they didn't specifically say how old he was. He had to either be in his early 20s when you first start the movie. And then you're talking, that was 20 years? It was around 20, or no, it was more than 20 years. It was actually like 25 or so years later that they started the scenes back up. It was many years later. So he was either in his, if he was in his 20s then he was in his 40s. But if he were actually up in his 30s, which is what it looked more like, he was already up in his mid-30s, maybe even close to his early 40s when the movie started. That actually meant that he was in his 50s, 60s, and that the serum, the venom that was in his system slowed his age down.
Yeah. Well, I think that was maybe...
And that might be what they were going with, is that it slowed him down, and so when they were going to be meeting up with him, he might have been in his 80s for all we knew. That part they did not actually explain. The only thing you got to see is that in his dreams that he was gray, his hair and his beard were a little grayer than what they were at the current time.
Yeah. And so, but he basically, the interesting part of that is basically he
brought it upon his own self.
He brought it on himself.
He brought his own end to his own self before it was actually supposed to happen.
Yeah, way before, because...
Yeah, probably another 10, 15 years, because they also didn't explain when the three girls were going to actually gain their powers, and the only one who knew when was Madam Web at the end. Yeah. She knew when they were going to get their powers, but you could also tell she knew about Peter.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what was going to happen, and and this is the funny thing, in the cartoons and stuff, you never get to see how, they've never really shown how much of an effect she has throughout the Spider-Man and all section of the Spider-Verse. You don't always get to see that, because I say Spider-Verse because, well, like in cartoons and stuff, they go with that more so. If they do the alternate realities, a lot of times they're going towards Spider-Man more than they do the Avengers or any of the others, because his character seems to spread out almost better in a way across the realities.
Blends well with
he blends with them. And he's one of the few characters that really he doesn't have a specific stop point. He could be with any of them. Yeah. He could be put with any of the characters, any of the groups, and he works. Yeah. His character just works with it. So it was quite interesting how they were setting. I see it as the way that they did the movie, that they set it up where they could really do an awesome sequel to that movie. I think they could do an awesome sequel a couple years down the road. The three women have got their powers now, and they're spider women, and then Peter's also got his powers. I mean,
and they worked well. They worked very well together
they work,
already.
yeah.
They finally figured out that that's what they needed to do, and they worked really well together. And so, as long as they continued to build that trust and everything, they really could make an awesome sequel. The movie was just. I'm very surprised. It doesn't matter. I said it like 10 or 15 times already, but I was extremely surprised that it was so cohesive when lately not a lot of movies, and it doesn't matter what you're talking about, is not cohesive.
Yeah, you can count DC, you can count Marvels, you can even count regular just Warner Brother. I think Warner Brothers is still running, but either way, yeah, they're still running out. But all those movie companies, I mean, we've been watching different movies, and I mean, we have our criteria of movies that we like, and just like everybody else who's listening to this video, they're going to have their criteria of movies. Now, if you like this, then, well, you happen to have one of the same criteria that we have. I like the superhero movies and stuff, but, if we're just going by that, I mean, all the movies really are, but if we're going by it, I actually had quite a hesitation of, I had a want to watch the movie because people complained about it before it released, at least here in America. Maybe they got to see it in another country. Maybe that's where the complaints were coming from, and where all the reviews were coming from. But if not, then all the reviews were coming from the people who just do like a test thing, that they pick those 100 or whatever people and they do a blind taste test on the movie. All those people were screaming about how bad the movie was going to be, and it made me kind of be like, well, it's a good possibility, but that's like, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but the movie Madam Web was a really good movie, and it was a good movie with female main actors. It was a great movie. The woman they got playing the part, she did a good job. The other three girls that were in it, they did a good job. The guy who was supposed to be the villain did a great job. I mean, he pulled it off.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. But then, like on the opposite side of the spectrum, the Captain Marvel movie that they had, the very first one they had. Now, I admit, haven't watched the second one, probably, not to be mean, probably won't. I didn't like the first one. I like Nick Fury. Yeah. And a lot of people did. I liked Samuel L. Jackson in the movie playing Nick Fury, and I liked seeing a little bit more of his beginnings.
Yeah. Well, I think that compared to that, I mean, the showcasing of the Madam Web and the characters that were her help was just really awesome compared to Captain Marvel. I mean, they did a really great job, but I was really surprised anyways. It doesn't matter. I gotta quit saying that, but it still surprises me. When I think about it, I'm still surprised that I enjoyed the movie, because I really went in with the expectation that I'm gonna watch it, but I'm really not gonna like it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's sort of like a bad kind of food that you don't really want to eat, and you gotta eat it.
Yeah, sort of like for kids and all, the vegetables. They turn around the horde vegetables. The kid will eat them. We'll finally get to where he'll eat them because he kind of got to, but he just doesn't like them. Yeah, well, unfortunately, that is what we went on to the thing. I went into the same thing. I wanted it to be a good movie. I did, and it ended up being a good movie. But I honestly didn't think they were going to do a good job, because I've been seeing the writing of all these movies lately, and I personally don't care for the writing style. And the bad thing is this from people who've been writing for years, who a lot of their prior work I actually enjoyed. There's quite a few of these people who've been writing for years, and I actually enjoyed a lot of their work when they first were starting out. And I mean, they went for 20 something years making good movies, good shows, and I mean, their stories were cohesive. The characters were well rounded.
That's a lot of what's happened lately with the characters. Don't seem to work together. It's sort of more like you watch it and it's not working together. So this one working together was really great. But if you haven't watched it, maybe try it. Well, of course, if you've listened to this, you basically know pretty much the whole movie now.
Well, you know the main parts. The thing is it's just because like this isn't a recap video. I mean, I'm not showing clips of the movie. As you can see, the only thing you're seeing is one of my drawings down here. But they don't. Since I'm not doing a recap, I mean, if you want to watch the movie, go ahead. Believe it or not, just because yes, I'm telling you, and you kind of know about the bad guy, you know about the bad guy, you know a little bit more about the storyline, kind of know what's going to happen. It just doesn't turn around. We can't really do the movie justice with just turn around talking about it. I mean, I guess if I was doing a recap of the whole movie and I was going through each and every part, maybe I've watched some recaps, and a few of the people who I've watched them on, they can do a good job, and you can actually have a real good idea of what the movie is. But lately, a lot of the people who have been doing this stuff for the movies and stuff, except for a handful, well, they really haven't been getting them right. Every time they turn, when you read their articles about the movies and stuff, there's something off about what they write. I don't even understand why, outside of that, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I think it's just
everybody's point of view,
Yeah,
a person sees it this way and another person sees it that way. And so we saw it, and this is a really great movie. And so, again, if you wanted to watch it, I would go watch it, because it was it was just one of the better
It was one of the better new Marvel movies
that they've had out. And so,
and the sad thing is that basically where everybody was talking and the way that Disney was talking, they didn't want anything to do with this movie. And I mean,
you was kind of hoping for a sequel.
Yeah, I kind of would like them to. I gather Sony is the one. Looks like Sony still has a lot of the Spider-Man characters and stuff that they have a little more access to than what Disney even does. Granted, I see they work together, so I don't know what their deal is, and I'm not going in to find out right now what, who owns what. That's not what this video is about. We'd be talking for 20 years if I was sitting here just talking about the ownership part.
So maybe we can hope for a sequel anyways, but I just, like I said, I think that cohesiveness and all in this movie was just phenomenal compared to a lot of the newer ones I've seen. Definitely. The characters went too far apart and you couldn't get them back together, but in this movie they finally kept them just far enough apart to draw them together towards the end of it to make it a really good movie.
And actually, I mean, one of the actual coolest things about the movie, at least in my opinion, is that the bad guy basically has not Peter Parker's powers exactly. Similar, but not exact. He has more of like Miles Morales' powers, which everybody knows, that's, he can swing on webs, so on and so forth. Now, of course, this guy, he didn't have the webs. That actually is something that I think that most of the time Peter Parker created. And I don't think there's too many other Spider-Men, unless they were variants of him, that actually created the webs. So, like, this guy, he didn't have the web shooter or anything else. And he really didn't have the same kind of, and he didn't have the spider sense. What he had was more of he could see an idea of what would happen in the future. Yeah. But only a little bit. He didn't have a humongous amount of it. So, he had the super strength, he had really fast speed, agility, and then, of course, he had, like, the venom bite. Is what he basically had from his hands. Now that's the part from like Miles Morales, except for this guy's version, would actually kill you over a period of time.
Yeah, if he got enough into you, then you would.
Yeah, Miles Morales' version, at least in the cartoons and stuff that I watched, that wouldn't kill you. It just hurt. But I liked how they did that, and so you're talking that 4 people, one of them with powers, and not powers like his either. She got her powers a similar way, but because of how it happened, she didn't get the strength, the climbing, and she didn't get the spider powers. She got the ability to see. Yeah. But unlike everybody else, she got the ability, unlike all the other ones, she got the ability to see and control what she could see most of the time. She eventually got where she could control it, where she could see everything that was going to happen, all the possibilities. Not like it was going to guarantee happen. She actually got to see the possibilities, which now is funny because, she was watching Scrooge
Yeah.
in the movie. And that was funny. So the movie was actually supposed to be like around Christmas time.
Yeah.
And so she was watching Scrooge. And it's kind of funny because we're actually filming this review video around Christmas. So it was kind of a funny thought, you know. And she found out that her powers if she used them the right way, that she could actually turn around and change what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't like time travel change either. It was that she saw what was going to happen, and then she was able to make decisions based upon what she saw to change it.
Yeah, so that made it a lot more interesting too. Because at first you're kind of thinking,
well, how is she? You were really wondering the whole time,
right.
How is she going to beat someone with Spider-Man's powers? And I mean, even one extra power that can kill you over touch.
Yeah,
you're trying to think, how is she going to beat that? She had a resistance because of being that she had been given some of the abilities from the spider venom, but because of it happening during birth, she didn't get all those powers.
Yeah.
She really did just get, but it caused her to be able to do multiple things, because I liked how they showed it. Her powers, as she learned, she was going to be able to spread herself and use her ability to basically put herself into multiple places, which I think if they did it like they look like they were going to, probably as they went along, she wasn't just going to be able to see the possibilities of what would happen right there, but most likely how a couple of the shows in the cartoon system went, she's probably likely going to be able to see the realities, not just the what could happen in this reality she's in, but also see all the other realities across the entire multiverse in Marvel's, which would have been a really cool thing.
It would be a great sequel.
Yes.
Because of the way that they did that. You do.
And I would like them to, and I mean, honestly, if they did a sequel, I would want them to have the 4 women. Mm-hmm. I would want them all 4 back to reprise their roles. But I would like for them to turn around and either do it before Peter becomes Spider-Man, or I like to turn and see it that maybe he's been Spider-Man for a while, and so they have to they bring him in because he's something that's necessary to have in the movie. I would like it because it would turn and make the story well-rounded. It really would. It wouldn't if they did it right, it wouldn't overshadow the 4 characters they already had. It would bring the storyline as a whole, because that's something you would normally see.
It sort of did seem like it helped it round it off, because then you understood why they were all in that. It went together.
Yeah.
And how interestingly.
And I'm sure what I'm going to say, Marvel's would probably, if they watch this, anybody who works there, they'll probably be more than happy to take this idea. And, okay, feel free to. It's just a little idea of a sliver of a storyline that they could start with. And that is, they could go with the idea that after, Ben, that they could make the movie start off with Ben dying. And so, we know the storyline dealing with Peter and after Uncle Ben dies, but they could turn around and actually interject Madam Web into the movie and the other 3 Spider-Women. Somehow I think that there's a way to do it. Interject him into the storyline where they could turn around and be a big portion of his beginning.
To help him out.
To help actually make him to help him fully become the hero, because as you see in the movie, Ben Parker, he actually got the line that he gives Peter from Madam Web, but she actually said it differently, and Ben changed it around.
Yep.
Well, yeah, because she said it, and instead of with great power comes great responsibility, the line that she was given was with great responsibility comes great power.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an interesting thing, if they would do a storyline where they actually brought it all around, because as watching the movie, I don't actually, because I think people were like, well, which Spider-Man does this go with? Honestly, I think that this is supposed to be a reality where maybe Venom is and Morbius. I think that this reality is where they are. But I think that they're actually in the alternate reality, like the Spider-Man that Tom Holland plays, the one that Andrew Garfield plays, and the one that Tobey Maguire play. I think that them 3 are still in their own worlds. I think that they're on their own realities. And the storylines that they gave them, pretty good. I think that in this world they could actually create a fourth Spider-Man and have him connected up with the current set of stories that they have. I think it would work really well doing it that way because, you know, the Ben Parker, the guy that got playing Ben Parker, he doesn't look anything really like any of the ones who I've seen play. And then like on the Tom Holland Spider-Man, there was no Ben Parker, at least not that I saw. And, you know, honestly, I overlooked that. When I watched through the movies, I overlooked that there was no Ben Parker at the time. And I don't know why. It's just because it's such a staple for the story that he's always there. I overlooked it when, hey, he's not actually there. He wasn't ever there. His aunt, I guess, was never married to Ben. She never got married.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to that either. But it would be a great way to round this off is to do that and have them teach him a lot of stuff with Madam Web, showing him.
Bring him into, and maybe, you know, it might even help give, because, you know, like his spider sense. It might be interesting to have a storyline where he actually had to learn a little bit more on how to use it. If they made it just a little bit different, made it where he actually had to learn a little bit how to use his spider sense, and not just the normal, oh, hey, I got it, I can do it, and, you know, something where maybe where he needs a little bit more training. Maybe it's not that he doesn't have the willingness to do, because I think he should have the willingness to go out and help, but maybe that he just needs help. I mean, I don't know how many people who've watched the Ultimate Spider-Mans, but, you know, he became Spider-Man, but then Nick Fury helped him, and S.H.I.E.L.D. helped him to become the hero that he wanted to become. So I think that they should turn around and do something like that, but instead of having S.H.I.E.L.D., have someone that maybe a little closer to the story, to what would make sense and how they set it up. She would basically be like, she'd be like the hidden friend that he didn't know that he actually had, because she was the friends with Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that they had never showed before, and they were best friends. And,
or better yet, maybe they even went with a storyline where she stayed in Ben's life, and so Peter, maybe when he got a little bit older, did meet her a few times, but didn't know that didn't know anything about her powers.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty interesting, and, you know, they probably could go with some of the older styles of the storyline about, you know, Peter's actual father being, there was one storyline where they were secret agents for the United States government and helped people. And, you know, there's so many storylines that they could really take and do the right way in this, with this combination. And I think they could continue on the storyline. And I mean, hey, honestly, they could even get one of the three people who played Spider-Man the first time to take on the roles, but it would just turn around and then would dictate their age area. Yeah. So that's why I wouldn't suggest probably taking one of the same ones.
Probably need a new one.
Because you probably need a new one.
But it would be a really great thing because they had such a cohesiveness. As long as they could slide somebody in there, I think you could still have that same cohesiveness.
Yeah. And hey, if they took this storyline, they could continue, and I think they could make a whole big group of Spider-Man movies that would be, and I mean, they wouldn't all be just Spider-Man. You wouldn't have to call them just Spider-Man. You could do something, you could call them something different, and you could have a whole group of movies that would do actual honor to the storyline of Spider-Man. Because the ones with Tobey Maguire, they're good story, but good storylines for them. And the ones with Tom Holland, pretty good storylines for them. And the ones for Andrew Garfield weren't bad, but honestly, I felt like they made his character darker than even what they should have for how they were doing it. But that'll be for another video. We'll talk about that a little later. So mostly we just want to try to stay on Madam Web. My mom's definitely trying to keep me on the subject. I have a tendency to go wee right off to the next side of the lane, talking about something else. So
yeah, I think we could keep it right there because they did that, and they could take this movie and do a whole set if they wanted
just
to.
Like,
they could do a
just
whole
like
set
they
of
did
movies.
just like they did with actually how it started. I mean, you know, the Incredible Hulk movie was the first one, and then it was Iron Man. The Incredible Hulk movie brought in the Iron Man movie by release date.
Yeah, so this could be
a good start for that.
Yep.
And maybe, hey, Disney, maybe this is your saving grace for your Marvel's movies, because you've had some of the shows have been decent. Not all. Trust me, not all of your shows have been that decent lately on the Marvel stuff. But some of them have been pretty decent. Moon Knight was really good.
Yeah.
And honestly,
So they need
the
to.
Loki one, at least the first season, I'm hoping to get to the second season. The first season was good. So all those ones were really good, and you had a couple of movies that weren't bad, but a lot of the movies that weren't bad are almost past at this point.
Yeah. So they need to take this one while it's kind of fresh still, because
Yeah.
it's a little older, but it's not so old that they couldn't go forward with
But
it.
and since they want to turn around and talk about, and they've been talking about how Robert Downey Jr. is going to be Doctor Doom anyway, hey, maybe you should turn and actually have him come from this reality. See, it would make a lot of sense because I don't even know if Tom Holland's going to play Spider-Man anymore. I don't remember what they said. So this would make a lot more sense to take the Madam Web movie, start from there, do a spinoff, have Robert Downey Jr. play Doctor Doom, but from that world, and have the Spider-Man from that world look up to him. Still, because I gather instead of making Doctor Doom the villain, it's such a rare thing. Make him a good guy. That would be a really cool pattern. I mean, then you could get away with bringing in X-Men and stuff of that nature, and then you could honestly, if you needed to, you could really start over. Sorry, nobody's gonna beat Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but you could, if you really wanted to do something. I'd get Hugh Jackman to reprise the role, but I'd actually let him take over and go from the storyline of the X-Men, the Wolverine and the X-Men storyline, and I'd let him have to run the X-Men, because he wasn't someone who actually did that until that storyline. I never really seen where he had to keep all of his calmness and stay in control. And
so this Madam Web would be a great way to get all that started, a kind of a new chapter. It would be really great.
I mean, don't fully throw out the other one, but honestly, I think you've about passed the point where you can fix what you've already done to the storylines.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, there might be something, but I think you keep compounding it.
I think it's too long, and you can't fix it. They keep trying to, but it doesn't work. So this would be like a fresh start. And
a fresh start without being a hard start. This is a good one for like a soft reboot, sort of like they turned and said with these Transform movies. Personally, myself, the Transform movies, they shouldn't have rebooted like that, but they were fine I thought they were fine where they were going. No, don't worry. These other ones we're talking about, I'm sure we'll come back to them a little later on other videos. Like I said, we're still trying to stick with the Madam Web. But, so needless to say, either way, the overall movie, we enjoyed it. It was a really cool movie. I thought that they did a good job with the characters. I thought that the actor choice was really decent. I thought that they did a good job and I thought that they actually made a movie where it had female actors, the main actors and actresses in the movie that were female. I thought that they did a really good job and did a very respectful and honorable storyline for that. Yes, and I've been, because I really been feeling like the ones that they've been doing, honestly, some of the women and all they turn, I know that they fuss because of how the movies have went. Well, truthfully, I think that partially that's actually because of the storylines they were given. I think that the storylines that they were given in those movies, I think that they were really distasteful storylines for female actors. Yeah. I think that the actresses had a really good chance to be really good in the movie and not. And then the storylines were turned around and yuck.
Yeah, and this when they gave them a very good storyline to start from and to develop into that cohesiveness, so it really worked out well.
Yeah, but they stayed away from other things that at least personally, my personal opinion, it causes issues in shows. And I can go into a little more depth of that later, but we'll just say that I've watched enough of especially the superhero shows. I've seen them follow this storyline, and every single time they follow this storyline arc, it doesn't matter if it's a little variation. Every time they seem to follow it, it actually diminishes the show, and even the show or the movie. Even if the movie doesn't all continue, it just diminishes the show. And I think the people who really watch the movies then don't want to watch them. I mean, they do, but then they're kind of like, oh, well, It's just another movie. It's just, and who cares?
So this one was surprising to find it so good.
Yeah, so this one was surprising. I wish that the ratings and stuff for it would have been better. I think that I think that the people who are watching it, I think that they've gotten too used to what they've been releasing, and I think that some of the stuff they've been releasing is actually the junk. And this right here was one of the good movies. But this ain't the only movie they did that with. The first Suicide Squad movie, personally, we loved the movie. And Will Smith, great job as Deadshot and all.
Yeah.
But either way. So I guess we'll turn and call the video a little bit about done. And we'll just go with, like I said, good movie. We enjoyed it. Awesome casting. Wish they'd make a sequel. Cry out loud, just make a whole series of movies, start from there and keep on going. Just keep it in the same kind of vein as what you had that movie, and don't go down in some kind of rabbit hole.
Keep all the action and everything.
Keep the action. Keep the storyline so cohesive. That part was reminiscent of Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Personally, Stan Lee was an awesome creator for the characters and all, and I can't say I agree with every character in Marvel's. I don't agree with everything of how they made them, but at least when I saw Stan Lee's name on them, there was something about the movies. When Stan Lee was in it, it didn't matter if he played a little voiceover or did anything in the movie, but when Stan Lee's name was on the movie, there was something about the movie. You could tell that somebody was there working it and getting it just right and keeping the characters from going off book somewhere else.
Yeah, so this one had that cohesiveness.
Yeah, this one had that cohesiveness.
So they need to keep it and do that again.
Yeah. Personally, I love for you to make the second one, and I love for y'all to make it quickly. I really would. But, I mean, don't sacrifice, in this case, this comes from work experience. Don't sacrifice quality for quantity.
Definitely.
So if you have to slow down, I mean, it's an awful thing to have to say that about movies because, especially live action ones, the actors and actresses, they get older and it gets harder for them to do the movies. But I'd rather you slow down and make a good movie than to rush through and make mediocre or even terrible movies. Yeah. They should have been good.
Yep.
So, either way, I think that pretty much covers Madam Web. I mean, we could go through a whole bunch more stuff and maybe we will later on. But probably one of these days we'll just do a video where we're talking solely about the movies all the way around. We won't stick with one movie. And I mean, I've done my best to stick with Madam Web in this one as the main thing. I've said very little about the other ones. I've just used them as reference. But maybe we'll do a video a little later on where we're actually just talking in an overall sense about movies and the writings, at least our opinions on the people's writings of them and all. And I think that we'll do a video on that, but of course we're not going to do one right this very second about that. But, so, either way, like we said, I'm not going to repeat it for like fourth time, but we're going to go with it like this. Y'all should if you haven't watched the movie,
definitely
don't just take our word for it because this is our opinion.
Yes.
And everybody's going to see it a different way. Go watch the movie if you can. Rent it, buy it.
Then you can form your own opinion.
And I mean, that is honestly that's actually the main reason why we watched the movie was because we wanted to form our own opinions. There's a whole bunch of movies lately that I've watched that actually weren't too bad, that I watched because people complained about them and turned and said, oh, it's this bad, this is this terrible, and it's just like, I'm tired of being told what to think about the movies before they even either get released or before I even get to watch them myself. And so I was like, you know what, fine, I'll watch them. Actually, I even ended up watching Sonic the Hedgehog because of that. And that's the first time I've ever watched a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, period. First time ever. But not as bad as I expected for a live action. So, either way, go watch the movie. You'll either like it or you'll hate it, but you'll know. Yeah. You'll know for a fact which way you feel about it. And that's what you want to know. You want to know how you feel about the movie, not just how other people feel about it. If you just go by how other people feel about it, you'll never watch it, or you'll never even think about it. So just look at it with a clear perspective. You want to see for the storyline. You want to know is the storyline as cohesive as what we're talking about. In our opinion, it is, but it is separate from most of the other stuff. I mean, it really is. They separated it just enough that they could continue going with the storylines and they could get somewhere. And I think that this would be a good soft start for a new set of Marvel's movies. And they could still bring in people like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans back into it, and Hugh Jackman. And I think that it would turn around and really make for a good start. And these other ones, if they want to end movie, maybe you should just turn into one of the storylines where that world where they're all currently in. Just unfortunately, maybe you should just do a really good storyline where only one of the characters from that world makes it and comes to this reality, and just destroy that reality completely off the books. But do one of the actual storylines from the comics to do it. Don't just be like, oh, goodbye. do something from the comic that actually will make some sense.
That way you can continue on with this cohesiveness that this movie had.
Maybe keep Moon Knight. That might be interesting. You wouldn't expect that would be one that you wouldn't expect for them to do that to keep.
Yeah.
I'd love for them to keep Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I really would.
Yeah.
And I preferred him being a good guy version of Loki than just the bad guy villain. So
interesting what they could do with this if they wanted to, but everybody just needs to go and find out how they feel about it. Don't let somebody tell them how to feel about it.
If you're watching this video just because you wanted to skip watching the movie, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you that advice. Honestly, take the time, watch the movie. I feel like it would be worth it. And even if you don't like the movie, it's worth looking at to find out if you like it or not. Personally, your own self. Because there's tons of movies that we like that other people don't like. And it's because we watched it. And don't get me wrong, the people who didn't like it, probably a few of them watched it. But you want your own opinion. You want to know your own opinion about it. Not just somebody else's.
Yep, that's for sure.
So,
always know your own opinion. Don't let somebody else tell you your opinion.
Yeah. So I hope y'all have a great day. And I don't know if this will get released during December of 2024, but Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Lord help us all in the ways that we need.
That's right.
And
because He's the only one who can.
And we'll turn around and send y'all. We'll be talking again on another video. Don't know what the video will be, if that's what you're waiting for. Sorry, don't have a clue. We just run with it. But you'll have yourselves a great day. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And God bless America all. And God bless you all. And don't forget to turn around and love your family and all, and because they're the only family you're ever going to have, so love them. And even if you don't agree with them all the time.
Yep.
Have a great one. Take care. And that's from me, DCWF, and my mom, C. Have a good one. See you again.